I'm Mark Olson with the Los Angeles Times, and I'm here with Greg Camalier, the filmmaker of the film Muscle Shoals, and Rick Hall, one of the subjects of the film. And Greg, I'm gonna start with you. I mean, your film is sort of a survey of the kind of rich and vibrant history of music and the recording studios that exist in Muscle Shoals in Alabama. And I'm wondering what drew you to that as a subject. Like, how did you find out about the studios, and what made you think that there was a story to tell there?
I think the story sort of found us as much as we found it, and I was on a road trip with one of my childhood best friends. He was moving to New Mexico, and we drove through the back roads to the south, taking back roads, and we ended up in Muscle Shoals late one night, and we spent the night there, and we knew a little about Muscle Shoals going into it. We actually turned around and drove 40 miles backwards on like a 1,700-mile road trip to go to Muscle Shoals, and that doing that changed our lives, and that was the genesis of the film. Was born in that next 24 hours, being in that town and being blown away by the story of that town and the sense of place and the fact that it had not really been told.
And now, Mr. Hall, what did you think when someone came to you and said they wanted to make a film about Muscle Shoals? Were you reluctant at all to participate?
Oh yes, I was very reluctant. I felt that they didn't know what they were doing, and I felt that the funds that would be necessary might not be there. I had all kinds of apprehensions about it, so I grilled them pretty good before we started to make the film.
And then what was it that changed your mind?
Well, one thing was they said, well, we've got plenty of money to do it with, so don't worry about that. That changed my mind. That got my attention. And then the fact that they grew up together and that they were all about this project. And of course, I explained to them that of all the hits and the great music that's come out of Muscle Shoals, nobody's ever done a documentary on NBC, CBS, ABC, anywhere. So it was past time. And I told them it was the best kept secret in the world, and of course it has been.
And now, Greg, why do you think that is? I guess in some ways, maybe another way to put it is, what is it about Muscle Shoals, that place, that made it such a sort of a fertile ground for all the music that's come out of there? The Allman Brothers, Aretha Franklin. It's such a wide spectrum of really terrific American music of the 1960s, 1970s in particular. And what do you think it was about Muscle Shoals that made it the place that it is?
Well, I'm sure Rick has a lot of answers on that as well. I would say, obviously, for one, Rick really sort of that music you're talking about. Rick was the father of sort of the music scene in Muscle Shoals, but the fact that this occurred in this rural place in America is even more fascinating. And it seems to, for some reason, you look at its history and you have Sam Phillips was born there, W.C. Handy was born there. Sam Phillips was very seminal in rock and roll, obviously. W.C. Handy became known as the father of the blues, although that shouldn't go to any one person, obviously. But nonetheless, he was a seminal figure in American blues. The fact that they were born there, and then you had Rick and what he started happened there, and then even before all that, even the Native Americans who lived there believed that the river had a muse that sang songs to them, and they called the river the Singing River. So it seems to be a very special place where a lot of music has been a part of its history, and then obviously Rick's determination to make it happen.
But the music that came out of your studio and that comes from Muscle Shoals, it's so distinctive in that it's a sort of mostly it's a combination of country music, R&B, rock and roll. It's very interesting that it's made by both, the most famous recordings are from both black and white artists. And absolutely. Do you have some sense of what it was about your studio, about that place, that drew those musicians to you? Why were they coming to you?
Because of me. No, they came because of me, and I had collected, obviously, a group of 7 or 8 really great musicians like the Duane Allmans and Joe South from Atlanta, and they had drifted in, and I had given them a place to work. and they were grateful. Dwayne Allman set up shop on my parking lot and lived in a pup tent for, I guess, a month or so, because he wanted to be there so bad, and I couldn't use him. I said, I've got a lot of guitar players. I don't need another guitar player. I need songwriters, producers, and record people. And so he said, well, do you mind if I set up shop on your parking lot and pitch a pup tent out there? And I said, no. He said, I'll sleep in my sleeping bag. And so he was willing to stick it out with me. And they, of course, became the Allman Brothers. But Dwayne came there and set that up with me and signed as an artist and became kind of like my gopher.
Mm-hmm. And now, Greg, in putting the film together, were you surprised by how maybe available people were? Like when you came to, people that you wanted to interview for the film and said, I'm making a documentary about Muscle Shoals, did you feel like you got a good response? And like, what do you feel like the impression out in the world is of the studio today?
Regarding the artists, their willingness and participation in the film, which I think was the first part of your question, I think they obviously came out in service of the story. Musicians know this story. This is a seminal part of American music history, and musicians usually love to honor those before them who have, paved the way or been instrumental, or they're heroes or just seminal figures in music, and maybe especially ones who have not had their day in the sun. So I think they came out to be a part of the film because of the story of Muscle Shoals, which they were well aware of and wanted to be a part of. The Civil Wars John Paul White is from there. The Alabama Shakes are from right down the road. The Black Keys recorded there. Drive-by truckers, people on fame, Dylan LeBlanc, James LeBlanc, Jason Isbell. All these folks are, from there. Alicia Keys came there to record on her track that's in the film. So that's some of the contemporary stuff going on right now.
Yeah, and Candy Staten was there.
Candy Staten was there. That's right. I forgot that.
They did a film of us recording her.
And is it important to you that people know that the studio sort of still thrives, and that it's not a dusty place, it's not an old place, and it's not like, say, the studio at Stax or Sun, where they're not active studios anymore?
As long as I live, it'll always be run like a business. Everybody will be on time, and there'll be no dust, and things are, ship-shape all the time. And it's been that way all my life. So, and I've been producing records for 40 years.
And now, do you still have all the sort of the vintage equipment, or have you updated the equipment?
Oh, yeah, we've updated the equipment several times over the years. We have two high-tech recording studios, Studio A and Studio B. Studio B is for the bands and the small groups. Studio A is where, it's my baby, it's where I cut all my hit records. And I never cut a record in Studio B except Wilson Pickett, and we did Hey Joe there. We never wanted to be Nashville. We never wanted to be Los Angeles. We never wanted to be Chicago or New York City, although we did a lot of acts from New York. Aretha Franklin, I produced her first hit record ever. I Ain't Never Loved a Man the Way I Love You, and Do Right Woman, Do Right Man, a two-sided #1 record. We also had Percy Sledge, who was renowned worldwide, When a Man Loves a Woman. And of course then the Osmonds and Paul Anka, You're Having My Baby, and Andy Williams. I mean, I have done it all. I'm talking about the bubblegum, the country, the pop. And we are kind of, as you said earlier, a Duke's mixture of the type music that's a little bit of rock and roll, a little bit of blues, a lot of blues, because of the black music we grew up with and all of us played. And some pop, not much middle of the road pop, or easy listening, but mainly everything has been funk and hard driving music, dance music, a lot of grit and a lot of soul and a lot of just, earthy records.
And the music continues, and I thank you both for joining us. Greg Camalier and Rick Hall with the film Muscle Shoals.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for having us.
Thank you very much.